Facebook Live coming to you here from the studios. Man, what an amazing week of breakthroughs yesterday. Oh my gosh. 4 hours on our prayer call. I think Richard's shining on this morning. Welcome, Richard, to the Rise as One Kingdom podcast, episode 13. As we learned a couple weeks ago, the number 13 means love. Do not allow the enemy to twist the truth. They always tell us 13 is bad luck. We got Freddy Krueger, all this crazy stuff going on in the world. Do not worry about it. I tell you, the amount of myself personally, man, I was having a huge breakthrough, Linda, yesterday. God morning. Thank you, Linda, so much for the invite to be on your podcast this week. Man, to share value, to bring life to somebody, as Linda knows, she runs a beautiful program for Three Hearts. And the impact that you're making, Linda, I'm so proud of you. The impact that you guys are making here on Facebook, I'm so proud of you. I'm watching what you're doing, Shara. God morning. Good to see you. I'm telling you guys right now, today is not going to be comfortable. For me too. But the reality is we have to deliver the message. Some housekeeping before we get started here this morning. Man, I saw the post earlier in the week to the DeJulia family. I don't know if you guys back in the Connecticut area knew Jerry DeJulia, but from Danbury, Connecticut. He was like Mr. Softball. He pretty much started the whole softball season. I remember my father. Two stories I have of Jerry DeJulia for the family. Our condolences for the loss of your father. Is that the first one was the California Cuties. This is a professional softball team. They traveled the whole country. They would go out there and they do all these tricks. They're like the Harlem Globetrotters of softball. And my father actually played for Jerry DeJulia. As you can see, my father's still playing at 86 years old this month. And man, to see the smiles on people's faces back then, the stands in the softball fields were packed. There was everybody down there. And I remember his son and daughter was flipping the burgers. Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Tricia. They were flipping burgers down there at the softball field. They had the onions. And when I was a kid, I didn't like onions. But the fried onions, I liked them. I liked them burnt. Put those things on my burger. Give me a dog. Give me some nice cold drinks. And I remember the bees being everywhere. And the other story was we went to his house for a party. And I remember he had clams there. And I was like a 5-year-old little boy. And then Corky Wildman. You guys remember Corky back in the day up in Danbury here, right? For the softball. Man, I got so many softball stories. You can be here all day. But he said, here, Joe, try this. Man, I put that clam in my mouth. That was the most disgusting thing I ever had. I spit that thing out like Jesus is going to spit us out. We ain't paying attention. If you're lukewarm, you'll be spit out. We're going to talk about today. Man, I spit that thing out. And I never liked clams, and I put it in my mouth again. But now I like clams. I like oysters. I like onions. I like all these things in the world. So condolences to the DeJulia family for the loss of your beloved father. Man, I tell you, Jerry, I loved him. He got to come to my father's 80th birthday party. We held it at our house in Brookfield, Connecticut a couple of years ago, guys. And Jerry was there. And he was still a sharpshooter, Kevin Allen. God morning, brother. He was still a sharpshooter at the pool table. Let me turn this thing off here. I think I got my, let me turn that Wi-Fi off. Make sure we don't get that skipping interruption here. I saw the Wi-Fi kicking in here. And man, to see Jerry smiling and kicking butt on the pool table. I think he was about 3 years older than my father. So he's got to be right around the 89-year-old mark right now. And he passed over this week. I saw some condolences to the family out there. Man. I love you, Jerry. Jerry, thank you for all the things that you did. Remember, he used to drive his little car doing the infield of the softball field. And our team back home this past year was 42 years playing together, Michael King. I played softball with Michael King in the Army out in Hawaii, excuse me. And, man, to still be going strong in this game of life, and this is what we're going to be called to today, is to repent. And I got so much deep information here. A couple more housekeeping items. Elijah and your family, our condolences to you, the loss of your grandfather this week. As you can see, guys, life doesn't last forever. There's always going to be an end date for every single one of us. We're all going to go to the heavens, or we're going down into the dungeons. We get to choose. We're going to talk about today's podcast is repent, going into the penthouse, being back on top. Whenever you see into those big hotels, you have the penthouse on top, Linda. You want to be on top, Michael. You want to be on top, Tricia. You want to be on top, Kevin. At the final eternity decision making, when you get there, did he know you? And are you getting in? Are you going back to the penthouse up on top? Is he preparing a room for you? That's the key to this game of life. And lastly, my good friend Christy and all those going through a lot of challenges. I know we've prayed for her last week, Christy. I just got a message from her. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. Christy, you know what? We're continuing to pray for. She's going through bone marrow transplant as we speak. Man, the pain that you guys are going through out there in the world. I see the pain. I feel your pain. I was sobbing yesterday on that prayer call. We had 4 hours. My brother Don was delivering a powerful message, man. I was in it. And man, he was just speaking directly to my soul, man. I was just releasing, because we don't understand how much we bury the things that are inside of us, Sharon. The things that are inside of us, Michael. The things that are inside of us, Kevin. The things that are inside of us, Richard. We don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to the mind, because we're trying to protect ourselves. Am I trying to protect us? We put all these things, that guilt and the shame and the things that we sinned against, the things that we did wrong, and times we missed the mark, the transgressions, and all these dirty things that we bury and put down inside of us, eventually they're going to come to the surface. And that's why today is so important. As you found out 2 weeks ago, we heard about the solar eclipse going across the United States. And man, the last thing for housekeeping, before I get too far ahead of myself here, my good friend Brian is going through a challenging time right now with his grandma going into hospice. And here's a man that had no father, no mother growing up, the streets of New York. I couldn't even imagine what that was like, Brian. And we had a beautiful group of prayer people come together from our prayer call. Had like 8 or 9 people. We got a last minute, say, Brian's grandma, which is ultimately his mother, is going through a challenging time right now. Let's get on this call. And 7 o'clock at night, boom, they all showed up. Started pouring love into this man. Next thing you know, everybody was receiving love yesterday. And through that experience, somebody I was working at the hotel, Brian connected with, said, yo, you got to come on to our prayer call. She was at the end of her rope. And his sister Lisa came on. I don't know how many of you are at the end of your rope right now. But there's hope. And it could be challenging in this world. But get around a group of people who are going to lift you up, not tear you down, is what I say this morning. Already the 10th of March. The 10th of next month, we're going to see a whole new world. As the solar eclipse we're going to talk about here is coming on the 8th, 3 days later on God's calendar. It starts the 10th. It's the new year. Man moved it to January 1st. The reality is it's the 10th of April is going to start the new year. And that solar eclipse is coming on the 8th, so we'll get into the content here. Get it all squared away for you guys. So here's the deal. We learned about this 2 weeks ago. We're gonna re-identify this thing and put it right up there in front of us. This is what's going down. We have no say-so in the matter until we repent on which way we're going to be going. If you take these things and you bury them, it's going to have a very challenging time when you get to the pearly gates. Says, I don't know you. And this is what happened to the pastor of 40 years on the operating table. His heart stops. He goes up. The pearly gates, meets Peter. Peter puts on the list, says, I don't know you. We talked about this about 6 episodes ago. He said, I never knew you. The pastor is justifying it. He's like a defense attorney. Yo, man, what are you talking about? He said, I did all this stuff with other people I was blessing. In 40 years, I was a pastor in this church and thousands of parishioners. He said, I never knew you. Hold on a minute. There's got to be a mistake. He looks on the list. I didn't know you. He says, you were calling him Lord. You never made him Lord. And at that moment, the doctor shocked him, brought him back to life. Boom, he was back into his body. Man, I guarantee you that man repented after that. He says, I did not want to go where I was going to be assigned to. So today we're going to get into the solar eclipse that's coming on April 8th. It's creating a Tav. From 2017, the solar eclipse came, and now there's one coming on April 8th, going from Texas through 7 cities in the United States, through Nova Scotia, going through 8 cities. This thing's going to pass right through, called Nineveh. And as you learned a couple of weeks ago, Nineveh means to repent. This is where Jonah was being called to Nineveh to tell them, you need to repent. And me and Kathy and Chuck were talking about this yesterday, this whole story. It's all making sense to me now as we're going through and dissecting this thing, was that the assignment for Jonah was to go to Nineveh, tell them to repent. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to see them burn. God sent him a message saying they're going to burn, they're going to wipe Nineveh off the face of the earth. God said, you need to go there and tell them. I'm not going there. I don't like those people. I don't like what they do. How many of us do that? I'm not going there to help that person. I don't like that person. But if you're called there, we have to be obedient. So he disobeys God, gets onto the ship, goes out in this boat out into the ocean, and they're all on the ship, and all of a sudden the waves come, and the storms come, and the ship's ready to go down. And Jonah speaks up and says, I know why this storm is happening. It's because of me. I refused to obey. Throw me overboard. And they take him and they throw him overboard. The storm stops. A whale scoops up Jonah. 3 days he's in the belly of a whale. 3 days and 3 nights. He gets spit out onto where? Nineveh. Telling them to repent. So this is what the universe and God's going to do to us if we're not obedient. If you're being called to serve, you have to get up and go serve. You don't have a choice. He will use somebody else, but you're going to feel some pain, just like Jonah did. Now he's out on this island. We're going to get into it here about what he goes up and says to the people of Nineveh, and we're going to find out what was going on in Nineveh. I didn't know any of these things a couple of weeks ago. As I started digging deeper into this, man, it's really hitting home for me. So today we're going to have a chance to go through this whole thing, understanding why he was being called to repent, and we're going to have an opportunity to repent. As you can see, I got my amplified version of the Bible right here. We're going to turn up the volume to make sure we get saved. Make sure we have salvation. Because if we don't, Richard, if we don't, Kevin knows this. If we don't, Tricia, what is the cost? What is the cost of not repenting? Who's going to pay the price if you don't raise your hand and say, I will do it? As I heard the stories yesterday on that prayer call for 4 hours almost. The hurt that people have been through. The deception. The abandonment. The sexual abuse. All of it. The not enoughness that we feel as humans. Man, that call was so deep yesterday. The woman said, I'm done. I'm done with this life. Then Brian was sent by God as an angel. Went over to the ATM, helped the lady out. 6 grandchildren she had. And when she shared her story, I was here at the studios yesterday. On our prayer call, I went downstairs to Kathy. Man, I am so touched by what happened yesterday. Then I got out into the car and Brother Don started delivering a message, and he started ministering to me. And man, I was feeling the pain. So I know that there's still things that all of us have buried, including myself. Because the opportunity we're going to have today is we get to go in private. Can't hear you. Richard says he can't hear me. That's not good.